Picture this, a quiet village in China's Heilongjiang, where an ordinary day takes an unusual turn. April 27, 2010, a group of construction workers in Xinhua village are on their lunch break, eagerly awaiting their meal. The canteen is bustling, the air filled with the sound of chatter and the clinking of cutlery. But the food is late. Frustrations mount, tempers flare, and the cook, Liu Xiuyun, is nowhere to be found. Now, Xiuyun isn't just any cook. At 65, he's the eldest in his family, often referred to as Liu Boss. His recent employment as a cook for the construction workers was surprising, given that he'd been unemployed for a long time. His first day on the job was just 3 days prior, on April 24th, so his sudden absence was peculiar to say the least. One of the workers, growing impatient, decides to visit Xiuyun's home. The front door is ajar, the lights are on, but there's no sign of Xiuyun. The house sits empty, silent, almost eerie, a stark contrast to the usual hustle and bustle of the village. The worker leaves, returning to the canteen empty-handed, the mystery of Xiuyun's disappearance hanging heavy in the air. Now you might expect a wave of concern to sweep over the village, but no, Xiuyun's disappearance barely causes a ripple. After all, he'd been living alone for the past 20 years following a divorce. He was a familiar face, but not a particularly well-known one. The villagers shrug it off, their main concern being their delayed lunch, not the missing cook. Despite the villagers' indifference, one person took note of Xiuyun's absence, his younger brother Liu Laoliu. As the day turned into the night, Laoliu took it upon himself to search for his missing brother. Laoliu's search was a desperate attempt to find a missing piece of his family. He scoured the usual haunts, the places Xiuyun would frequent during his free time. But each location he visited only echoed back his brother's absence, a chilling reminder of the mystery that was unfolding. Undeterred, Laoliu pressed on, his determination fueled by the bond of brotherhood. His search took him through the winding streets of Xinhua village, the sun dipping below the horizon as he called out his brother's name. But as the hours wore on, his calls were met with silence. Xiuyun remained missing, and the night brought no solace. With a heavy heart, Laoliu decided it was time to involve the authorities. He made his way to the local police station, his mission now twofold: report his brother's disappearance and seek their help in the search. Yet the police response was disheartening. Their lack of enthusiasm for the case was palpable, their efforts to find Xiuyun almost non-existent. Laoliu was left with a sinking feeling in his chest. The cold indifference of the police, a stark contrast to his own frantic worry. He returned home, the silence of his house a stark reminder of his brother's absence. But he held on to hope, waiting anxiously for news, for some sign of his missing brother. Days turned into nights, and nights into days, yet the news he so desperately awaited never came. The silence was deafening, the uncertainty a constant companion. Laoliu's world turned into a waiting game, a cruel test of patience as he awaited any word on Xiuyun's whereabouts. But as Laoliu waited for news of his brother, little did he know that he would soon be the center of a similar mystery. His world, already spinning from his brother's disappearance, was about to take an even darker turn. The quiet village of Xinhua was about to descend deeper into the grips of a mystery that would leave it forever changed. 2 days later, the village was struck by another disappearance. This time, it was Laoliu. Liu Laoliu, a 46-year-old brother of the missing Xiuyun, who was known for his community involvement and work as a farmer, had vanished. His absence was first noticed when several villagers needed to meet with him. They arrived at his home to find an eerily familiar scene, an open door and lights left on, but no one home. An unusual silence hung in the air, a stark contrast to the usual hustle and bustle that surrounded Laoliu's daily life. The villagers attempted to reach him on his cell phone, but it was switched off, an out-of-character move for Laoliu, who was always reachable. A sense of unease began to creep into the hearts of the villagers. They searched for Laoliu, but their efforts proved futile. The village was buzzing with whispers and concerns, the echo of Xiuyun's disappearance still fresh in their minds. It was then that the villagers decided to inform Laoliu's family about his unexplained absence. The family, already grappling with the loss of Xiuyun, was plunged into further despair. The second disappearance within a span of 3 days was too much of a coincidence, and they rushed to report it to the police. The police station, which had only days ago been visited by Laoliu reporting his brother's disappearance, was now receiving news of his own. The officers were taken aback, their initial apathy replaced with shock and a sudden sense of urgency. What had initially seemed like an isolated incident was now shaping up to be something far more sinister. The second disappearance was a wake-up call for the police. The possibility of a connection between the two cases was undeniable, and the need for a thorough investigation was evident. The rural tranquility of the village had been disrupted, replaced with a palpable tension. The police, now with 2 missing persons on their hands, were left with no choice but to escalate their efforts. With 2 brothers now missing, the police were left with no choice but to launch a full-scale investigation. On May 7th, a task force was finally formed to delve into the mysterious disappearances. A sense of urgency took hold of the local police force, and they called for assistance from neighboring villages. The local officers, now joined by their counterparts from around the area, were solely dedicated to investigating this peculiar case. The task force began by detailing the lives of the 2 brothers. It was a tale of 2 different lives, lived under the same family name. Xiuyun, the elder brother, had been living a solitary life for 20 years. He was a man of few words, with little contact outside his family. He was largely unknown to the village, his existence only truly acknowledged when he was hired as a cook for the local construction workers. And then, there was Liu, the younger brother. Liu was a different story. He was a farmer, a profession that connected him with the community. His disappearance was not only a mystery but a loss deeply felt. The villagers knew him, interacted with him, and now missed him. The stark contrast in the brothers' lifestyles baffled the investigators. It was like trying to connect dots from 2 different puzzles. The task force's investigation was thorough. They combed through the brothers' homes, their places of work, and their usual hangouts. They interviewed the villagers, the construction workers, and the brothers' distant family members. No stone was left unturned, no lead left unexplored. The investigators also delved into the brothers' pasts. They looked at records, at old disputes, at friendships and fallouts. They wanted to understand, to find a motive, a reason for their sudden disappearances. It was an exhaustive process, a race against time, as each passing day diminished the chances of finding the brothers alive. The task force's efforts turned the quiet village into a hub of activity. The villagers watched with bated breath as the investigators went about their work. The quiet rural life they were accustomed to was replaced with a sense of unease and anticipation. The village was abuzz with rumors and theories, but no concrete answers. As the investigation progressed, the villagers could only watch and wait, their quiet village now a hub of activity. The mystery of the 2 brothers' disappearance had turned their world upside down, and the only thing they could do was hope for a resolution. The investigation would soon unearth a chilling reality that would shock the village to its core. As the task force delved deeper into the lives of the Liu brothers, they found a web of secrets and lies that pointed to a sinister truth. The brothers weren't just victims, they were perpetrators too. Their past was tainted with a series of heinous acts that had long been buried under the facade of their everyday lives. The investigators had to tread carefully, as they were not just dealing with missing persons anymore, but a potentially more complex and darker scenario. As the investigators pieced together the puzzle, they uncovered a haunting narrative. The Liu brothers weren't just leading double lives, they were living in the shadows of their own malevolence. The villagers, who had once sympathized with their plight, were now left to grapple with this newfound revelation. Each discovery the investigators made, each piece of evidence they unearthed, led them down an even darker path. The truth was far from what anyone had anticipated. The Liu brothers weren't just missing, they were hiding from a past littered with unspeakable acts, and a present that was catching up with them. As the investigation continued, the task force was faced with an even more daunting task. They had to reconcile the image of the Liu brothers as victims with the grim reality of their past. The villagers, who had once been concerned for their safety, were now left to grapple with the unsettling truth of who the Liu brothers truly were. The investigation had taken a turn that no one could have predicted. It wasn't just about finding the Liu brothers anymore. It was about unearthing the truth, no matter how ugly or horrifying it might be. And as the truth slowly unfolded, the villagers were left grappling with a horror that they could never have imagined.